What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Hands On channel. As you can see, we're out here in my woods today. This is one of the areas that my wife and I are considering for a potential building site. Come here, Ranger. Come on, bud. We got Ranger Boy with us today, so if you hear some scratching, hoofing, and hollering around back here in the background, that may be him. He loves to come out here and get some squirrels, but it's been a few days since I've made any kind of videos on news or SHTF collapse or anything like that, and I thought it was about time that I catch you guys up, because if you haven't been paying attention, last weekend a lot of stuff happened. One of the biggest things that happened was late Friday night, they passed their so-called infrastructure bill. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff in there that has nothing to do with infrastructure, and it has everything to do with advancing their socialist agenda. You know, their climate stuff, all this other stuff that's going on, not only in our country, but around the world right now, like at the COP26 thing. I mean, this is just basically a socialist blueprint to take over the world. One of the things I heard was that Surgeon General Murthy, Vivian Murthy, however you say his name, I'm assuming that's the pronoun that he, she, it, whatever wants to use. So a V mandate for smaller businesses is not off the table. Somebody asked him in an interview that basically President Biden's administration has not ruled out a federal V requirement for small businesses. So remember early on they said basically, and they're still saying, that if you have more than 100 employees that you're going to be subject to this new OSHA guideline. And basically what the federal government is doing is they're using their bureaucracies to implement unconstitutional laws that they know they can't implement themselves. So that's why Biden, he used the CDC to implement the eviction moratorium thing. And of course that got kicked out. Well, now he's trying to use OSHA to implement this V mandate so that it doesn't come back on him. And, I heard some really positive news yesterday on Chris Ann Hall's show. They said down, I believe it was in Florida, which is where they're from, the state is talking about basically kicking OSHA out of the state. So if they're going to try to implement those things, the state is willing to take over the roles of the federal government's version of OSHA, and the state could easily do that. And I think that's a great idea. Now, OSHA would still have jurisdiction on federal land, but on any state land or any privately owned land in the state of Florida, OSHA would have zero jurisdiction if the state of Florida goes through with this bill and kicks OSHA out of the state. I mean, that is excellent. And I hope that reverberates all around the country, and other legislatures start picking that up. The state legislatures, like I've been saying all along, guys, the states is where our true power is because of the 10th Amendment. So I advise you, if you like that plan that I'm talking about, go look it up. Go look and see what Florida has done to stand up against these health liberty violations that Biden is trying to do and implement through OSHA. If you're against that, you should go look at this law that is on the books, or it's basically being talked about right now in the state of Florida. It hasn't passed into law yet, so right now it's just a bill. But there's a bill out there in Florida where they're trying to kick OSHA out, and I think that is huge news. That's huge news, guys. And again, if you're in a red state, you could probably, forward some of that stuff over to your representatives and state senators and try to get the attention that it needs in your local areas and stuff like that, because I think that's how we're going to fight this stuff back. So anyways, Murthy, he was saying that, it's not off the table for small businesses to be forced to implement that stuff. So a lot of people, you had a few options. If you were a big business, and let's say you had like 125 employees or something like that, you have some different options. And I know these are not going to be popular, but being that I've been in management positions and supervisory positions throughout my career, I kind of understand a lot of this stuff. So let's say Joe employee who makes, Eskimo pies or whatever, he all of a sudden has 125 employees, right? Or 126. And suddenly this mandate's coming down on him. They're telling him that they're going to charge him $13,000 up to, I believe it was even more than that, if there were multiple infractions, like somewhere around $100,000 fine or something like that. I can't recall exactly what the numbers were, but they were like everything else. They were off the charts. Everything that the Biden administration does is off the charts, and it's done intentionally to disrupt us, basically. So anyways, what a lot of those companies that have like 125, maybe 110 employees will do is they'll say, well, you know what? The mandate says 100 or more. Simple. You know, I fire 26, 27 employees until I have 99 employees, and we'll just keep it at 99 employees. So I think a lot of companies that are real close to the threshold, that's exactly what they're going to do. So let me ask you this, is that creating jobs in America, or is that destroying jobs? Is that taking people out of productivity and out of production in a time when supplies are scarce? You know, there's all kinds of backlogs on all this other stuff around the world, and the shipping containers all piled up out in the coasts and, you know, off the coast of California. All this stuff's going on, right? Is that a good idea to be, you know, forcing employers to fire people so that they have less than the threshold? I don't think it's a good idea. Of course, I don't think it's a good idea to fire 1/3 of the employees around the country that are also, you know, really vital employees. Like I said in another video, these people are the glue that keeps our society civil, keeps us bound together, and helps to enforce these different things that we have, these principles that we have on the books. You know, like the police, the military, the fire departments, doctors and nurses, stuff like that. I mean, could you imagine if 1/3 of the nurses and doctors and fire department and police departments in your local community were gone suddenly? Do you think that's going to help reduce crime? Do you think that's going to help reduce the response time of emergency services to your area? No. And anybody with, I mean, just the smallest brain capacity in the world could figure that out. But for whatever reason, the Biden administration hasn't even looked into that. And honestly, I think they do know. They're planting the seeds of destruction. Everything they do is intentional. And oftentimes we fall into this thing. I fall into it too, where I'm like, well, maybe they didn't know what they were doing. No, they know exactly what they're fucking doing. These people are trying to destroy the United States of America. And the reason they want to do it is so that they can usher in the one world order, the new world order, the one world currency, all this other stuff. Biden doesn't care about re-election because I think the people in the party, in the Democrat Party, they know that there's like maybe a 1% chance, 2%, 3 or 4 or 5% chance that Biden could get reelected. And that's if they turned on the cheating machine to full blast. And everyone would know. They almost got busted last time. So they're in trouble. They know they're in trouble. And the reason they're going for, you know, Katie bar the door, full blast, everything turned up to 11. The reason they're doing that is because they know Biden has 0 chance or almost 0 chance of getting reelected. I mean, look at the gas prices. Look at the food prices on the shelves and stuff. I mean, most people, even the most adamant Trump-hating people, can't deny the fact that it's costing us a hell of a lot more to live in Biden's America than it did in Trump's America. And also, there's shortages, there's other things, there's insecurity all around, whether that be the power grid, the future prices of gasoline. I mean, his energy secretary was laughing the other day. I believe that's who it was. When someone said, hey, what are you going to do? What do you think Biden's going to do to reduce the gas prices? She busted out laughing. She thought that was pretty fucking hilarious. Well, I don't think it's hilarious. You know, gasoline is what helps me to get out here to my property and do the things that I need to do here on my property. And, you know, if I'm wanting to farm in the future, then diesel is going to be a factor. You know, guys, I haven't proven this yet. I haven't gone and done the research on this yet, but I'm hearing a whole bunch of rumors all around the country at a lot of the big truck stop gas stations. They're running out of diesel, and supposedly somewhere along I-40, they were restricting the amount of fuel you could purchase. So it was like 60 gallons. Now, I realize most people don't have a 60-gallon gas tank on their car because most people are driving smaller vehicles. But, you know, the truck drivers, those guys are the ones that could put, you know, hundreds of gallons. Let me know down in the comments, guys. I know there's a lot of truckers that watch our channel here. So let me know, how much do these how much do these big rig tanks hold, these big saddle tanks on the side? Looking at them, I'm guessing they probably hold like 100 gallons per side or something. So with the restrictions coming in, the shortages coming in, this is going to cause a chain reaction. We all know this. If you know how basic business works, you know that, you know, if you disrupt any one component of the chain, then everything else collapses. And that's what they're trying to do. So moving on to the next story here. This is an embarrassment for the United States of America. This guy, Joe Biden, he's a complete embarrassment. You know, for one, if you heard anything back when he was visiting the Pope last week, there was a big rumor going around all around Rome and stuff, and not necessarily in our media, but all around Rome, that Biden had to basically go meet with the Pope with his pants full of poo. And I know that's disgusting. No one wants to talk about that. I don't want to talk about it on the channel here, but apparently the guy is to the point in his life where he can't control his bowels anymore. And you know, I feel bad for people that are in that situation. I know that if I live long enough, one day I'll probably be in that situation. But you know what I wouldn't want to be? I wouldn't want to be the leader of the free world if I was in that situation. If I was losing my capacities and I didn't know where the hell I was half the time, and I couldn't string together a sentence or two without, you know, inserting some sort of weirdness in there. I mean, Biden is just off the fucking rails. I mean, it's like a plane crash or a train crash in slow motion over and over and over every day. Every time the guy opens his mouth, he is an embarrassment to the United States of America. We're supposed to put our best and brightest up as the president of the United States, not some guy that has dementia whose only claim to fame is that he's been in politics for 50 years of his life. I mean, 47 years, whatever it was. I mean, that is ridiculous, guys. And there's a reason we don't get good candidates that run for office. It's because smart people know. They know better. They know that if they ran for office, that they'd find some BS stuff that happened, you know, whatever, 20 years ago in college or some other thing. They'd find some person, they'd dig up some person that would destroy your reputation. And they would come and they would mess with your family and they'd mess with your kids and they'd do stuff that you wouldn't want to happen. So who is drawn to power like that? Well, clearly it's sociopaths. Clearly. It's people that are super arrogant, and come on guys, let's face it. I mean, you could say a lot of things about Trump, but modesty was not one of them. The guy is over the top arrogant. Now, I liked his leadership a lot better than what we got going on now, don't get me wrong, but all of these people, my point with bringing that up is like Obama is another great example. I mean, Obama thought he was like the Messiah or king of the world or something, and many people, you know, thought the same thing. Many people still worship him. In fact, he's stealing all of Biden's thunder at the COP26 meeting or whatever, because, you know, Obama's still a superstar celebrity, and nobody likes old Sleepy Joe. Nobody, not even the people that voted for him. I mean, let me ask you this. Are you hearing anybody on Facebook and YouTube and anybody else anywhere, any social media sites, anywhere, talking positively about Biden? No, you're not, because there's nothing positive to say. So here's what happened. We should start calling him Putis, because he released the Kraken on the Duchess of Cornwall. And I want to call her the Duchess of Cornhole, because it kind of ties in with the great Cornholio. When Biden was standing there in the interview like this, and everyone said, yeah, it's like the great Cornholio. He needs TP for his bunghole. So listen to this. The Duchess of Cornwall has reportedly been telling close associates that President Joe Biden made his own contribution to global supplies of natural gas when he farted loudly in front of her at the Glasgow COP26 climate conference. Kamala was apparently blown away by the smelly incident and hasn't stopped talking about it since. It was long and loud and impossible to ignore, an insider told the Mail on Sunday. I mean, this is an embarrassment. The Duchess of Cornwall is saying that Biden basically sharted his pants right in front of her. Ironically, he has had an earlier pledge that one of the most important things society faces in the near term is to reduce our methane emissions as quickly as possible. And I agree with that. We need to get Biden out of office as quickly as possible to reduce the methane emissions that we're spreading all around the world. Really, the only safe place for him would be like some sort of retirement community, or maybe possibly a prison. That could be a really good place for him as well, because I'm sure they could put in a fart fan in there that would suck out that fan, and it wouldn't contribute to, or it would suck out that fart, you know, and it wouldn't contribute as much to global warming. So the guy can't control his freaking bowels, people. He can't control his mouth. He can't control what comes out of this end, or what he does with this end when he's sniffing and smooching on young girls and stuff like that, and weird stuff. And oh, have you heard the rumor that's coming around about his daughter's diary? I mean, it's unsubstantiated, but they're saying Biden used to shower with her, and that was her own words. And that's a whole nother deal. Have you heard about the James O'Keefe deal? He got raided over the weekend. His news organization, supposedly, you know, we're supposed to have protected under the First Amendment the right to a free press, and yet he was raided, and his sources and stuff were seized. His, I don't know if they took his computers, but they took his iPhones and stuff, and they seized it. And for what? The charges were trumped up BS, and there's no proof that the diary was even stolen or anything like that. And not only that, O'Keefe and Project Veritas weren't the ones that stole it, if that was the case. So, I mean, this is a direct violation. It just doesn't get any more direct than sicking the Justice Department on your enemies. That's a direct violation of the Constitution. We're supposed to have a free press. But Biden doesn't like what O'Keefe and Project Veritas is doing, so they're going to go in there and shut them down. So I'm sure the left is probably happy that this person, James O'Keefe, that has had so many bombshell stories, from the abortion clinic stuff earlier on to just insider stuff that we're not going to hear about, insiders from Pfizer and other places like that. Well, that's a threat to them. James O'Keefe and Project Veritas are one of the last few people in the world that are doing real free press journalism. And so they have to shut that down immediately. Apparently there was a big concert this last weekend, and some guy named Travis Scott, I'd never even heard of the guy. But of course, I'm out of touch. I'll admit it. I'm out of touch with modern music. I never heard of the guy, Travis Scott. But apparently he's a big deal in the music scene, and it's like a rap concert or whatever. Him and Drake and some other guy was down there, and they were having this big rap concert. Well, 8 people are dead, and a whole bunch of others, like dozens and dozens, were injured because at some point, everyone started rushing the stage, and people were literally crushed. So that's one of the reasons that I avoid big gatherings of people like that, because when you get in a situation of mob rule, suddenly people can get crushed and killed and trampled to death and stuff like that. It's a real dangerous situation. So don't put yourself in that situation to begin with, would be my advice. But, if you must, stay near the exit, near the rear, so you don't have to, end up being trampled or squished to death, because that's what basically happened. Imagine the way an anaconda squeezes someone, or a python squeezes someone to death. And slowly, as you exhale that breath, it gets tighter and tighter. Well, that's what happens when you're in a situation like that, packed in like sardines. There was some criticism of this rapper Travis Scott, because there's one point when you see him like flying around on this thing. It's like a big lift, a man lift thing, and he's flying around on this thing, and he keeps on singing and keeps on rapping, even though there are dead bodies right down below him. Now, the lighting was low. In his defense, maybe he didn't know the guys were dead. I don't know. Maybe that's a normal thing at concerts. People do all sorts of drugs and stuff, so maybe people pass out all the time. I don't know. But there was a lot of people that was talking about it like it was some sort of a satanic ritual. And I could actually see that, because they showed a screenshot of the stage from like afar, from the back of the room. And apparently the whole thing was this big mountain of eyeballs. It looked very satanic. There was a lot of fire and stuff. And like when you walked into the venue, you walked into a giant Travis Scott head with his mouth open. And it was very evil looking. So I could understand why people say it was a satanic ritual. It looked like there was some kind of evil stuff going on there. But one of the other things I heard that I find very interesting is someone was back in the concert, supposedly, allegedly stabbing people with syringes and going around, and who knows what they were injecting them with. But one of the, I think it was the Houston Police Department, the police chief came out and said that basically one of his responders, one of the first responders, I can't remember if it was an EMT or if it was a police officer, but they were on the scene, and they actually reached up for something, and somebody jabbed them in the neck with some sort of unknown substance, and then suddenly that officer passed out. And they had to give them some sort of counter drug to counter those measures. And then once they gave them that drug, they revived. So who knows what in the world this stuff was that these people were injecting. But, could it have been that Fauci and Gates were down there at that concert? I mean, they love jabbing people with everything that they've got and all their different poisons and stuff. So could it have been, little Fauci was down there running around in the concert? I don't know. That's wild speculation, but somebody was out there with the intent, and it made it sound like there were multiple people out there with the intent of drugging people against their will. So, dangerous times we live in, guys. And especially when you get yourself in a situation where there's a lot of other people around, because that's when shit's going to go wrong. So I advise you, you know, get out in the country. You know, nobody's going to run up out here and jab me in the neck with any foreign substance, you know, or whatever. It ain't going to be little Fauci or Gates or anybody. They can't get me here. So find you a place where you're isolated like that and you can get away from people. And, you know, if you want to hear a concert, you know, maybe just go buy the CD and listen to it at home as many times as you want or whatever. But based on what I heard on the video, it could hardly be called music. So I don't really understand the appeal of this Travis Scott guy, other than the fact that the media says he's cool and he's into Satanism and stuff like that. So, and they're apparently doing satanic rituals down there. And a lot of people were saying that it was actually a satanic sacrifice. Again, I offer no opinion on that because I wasn't at the concert. I don't know. But based on the pictures that I saw, I can understand why people think that. It looked pretty damned evil to me. It certainly wasn't a Christian concert, I can tell you that. So, hell, I can't think of anybody I would go pay money to see in a concert anymore. It's just, especially one of those types of concerts where it's standing room only and you're in a situation where you could easily get into a bad deal like that. So guys, guard yourself, keep on prepping. Keep on watching the news, as depressing as it is, and try to keep your spirits up in some way or another. But anyways, I appreciate you tuning in, and I stand for liberty. I hope you do too.